Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Welcome to the Detroit Koolaid, everybody. It's Friday, and this is Griff coming at you again. As you heard from Wednesday's show, Derek had another guest spot. It's a very entertaining show. Good listen. Bears fan, which I'm okay with that. You know, it's nice to have a little banter back and forth between the two. And I know on the last few shows, Derek keeps kind of mentioning that he's just taking a break from me. You know, he's kind of, you know, as a quote-unquote kind of kicked me off the show for a time, but, you know, that's okay. What you don't realize is, like, doing a podcast with Derek, to me, is kind of like dealing with my ex-wife, where chatting with her, figuring stuff out, her opinion's always the right one, yours is always kind of wrong, and doesn't see your opinion, and if you are wrong ultimately, the admission of being wrong is generally really quick, and then poo-pooed aside and never mentioned again. But that's fine. I mean, it's not bad talking to you guys, doing my own show every now and again. So I hope you enjoy listening to me. But it is Friday, so as always, you always get my weather report. This weekend, it's actually supposed to be mid to upper 40s here in mid-Michigan. It's almost like it's pretty much spring weather outside, which means I'm going to be busting out my shorts, getting my flip-flops, be looking to head to the beach here at some point. But geez, you know, compared to the negative degrees that we were in, just seems like, 10 days ago with all the snow. So, not being that bad outside, I say go outside, uncover that grill again. If you do cover it up for the winter, maybe you can cook up some steaks, even just want some burgers or hot dogs, just to get that, spring, summer feeling going again. But as always, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. First thing I want to start off with today was saw an article earlier this week about Matt Campbell's, I guess his take about how he feels about the way people think he's going to be the coach or what people are calling him. I guess some reporters and some talking heads are, receptive to him and like him. They think they like his energy. As Derek mentions, it's bringing a new style to Detroit, something Detroit hasn't had in a while, fiery presence, and some people like that. And then there's other ones out there that I guess the terminology I read and ended up reading was meathead. They just think he's a meathead. And first of all, I mean, I don't know what gives you that impression. Yeah, he's a former football player, and he has a very strong personality. You can tell just by his introductory press conference. But that doesn't mean the guy doesn't know football. And I really like the way he's coming back at it and saying, well, yeah, I guess you could call us that, but, they're football minds. Him and Chris Spielman, even you brought Chris Spielman into it as well. And I think they're, Chris Spielman, just by listening to him call games, he knows the game very well, and it seems when he is being the color man on a football game, he's able to point out, things that, guys aren't doing correctly, what they need to do, kind of calling out, what teams should be doing to improve, to stop, more so than just some color guys that, I know Derek really liked Aqib Talib when he was doing that, but, I mean, yeah, he was, entertaining, but, entertaining almost in a ha-ha thing, where Chris Spielman's actually kind of giving you something like, this is what, the team needs to do to stop this, or something like that. So, he knows the game, and so does the head coach. So, I almost like that, the way he just kind of brushed it under the rug. It's almost to the effect that it's like, he's saying, go ahead, underestimate us. Take us, as the same old Lions. Take us, that you're going to be beating us down for the next however many years. I'm here doing what I'm doing, putting my team together and my staff. I like that. Kind of fly under the radar. Well, they're not going to be a good team. Look at their head coach. He's just a meathead. And with that being said, and I saw a power poll already, and the Lions were ranked dead last in said power poll. So I know there's once again a lot of pundits out there just not giving them credit, and I'm even willing to admit, at this point right now, I don't think the Lions are going to be very good next year. I think they're going to play a lot harder, and I think this coach and the staff that he's bringing in of former players and some wise sages that have been in the league for a little bit, I think it's going to be a better team. I don't know if they're going to be sniffing the playoffs or they're going to be another 5-6 win team, but I think they're definitely going to play harder. So many times last year, it looks like that team gave up until they got rid of Matt Patricia. Then they played harder for Darrell Bevell. But I think that's what Campbell brings. He's just going to be he's going to be a more fiery coach. And the team is definitely going to play harder for him. So when pundits are out there just, saying that, oh, he's just a meathead, a football meathead, it kind of harkens back to, I don't know, being a child of the 80s. You see in like those 80s movies and even some into the 90s, like the jocks have like, they're just duh, 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 in the movies they can't, rub two words together to put a sentence together. And I don't think this is going to be this way. I mean, they're smart. I mean, it's almost calling him meetings, just almost kind of like using that stereotype that, he's just out there and just, duh, play football, play football. And that's not what it's going to be. Yeah, what he said, like I said, Kenny Galladay, laughed out loud, when he said, bite a kneecap off, take 2 punches, get back up, or take your other knee, or they're going to be taking hunks out of you. I mean, it's fiery, and maybe a lot of Lions fans just aren't used to seeing that. We're used to the mild-mannered and kind of laid back, and who was the last fiery coach that we had here? I mean, Bobby Ross was fiery. I don't think he was as fiery, but by the time he was here, he was just kind of older and maybe mellowed out a little bit, but he was definitely a fiery coach. I mean, Wayne Fonte seemed a little fiery. That guy always had a nice sound bite, and I mean, I loved, who didn't love Coach Wayno? Who didn't love the big buck? Benny Blades talks about how he loved him, and when you listen to the Believe in Lions podcast with him and Derek, I mean, he loved Wayne Fonte. I mean, how was he not a good coach? But that's one of those things where those guys, Wayne Fonte was able to get the team motivated. I think when Bobby Ross came in, they didn't like his. I would call him fiery, but he was more like along the lines of Matt Patricia, more stern, more disciplined. And I don't think the team took to that well. So he just wasn't good with what the team had at the time. But I think that's what Campbell is here for. He's to kind of get him out of that malaise of, the coach, I don't want to say, very stern, very regimented. I don't think the Lions are just going to be undisciplined and run wild like when Jim Schwartz was here, which, by the way, was a very fiery coach as well. Got him to the playoffs, took over a 0-win team. But I think with coaching hires now with the Lions, I just think a lot of people are just out there thinking it doesn't matter who they hire. It's going to be the same old Lions. It's going to be the same old Lions. It's going to be the same old Lions. Where Sheila Ford Hamp is getting a lot of praise for wanting to turn this organization around. I'm not saying that, Miss Ford wasn't looking to do that. I don't think they just knew how to do it. It's putting the right people in the right positions. And if people want to go out there, pundits want to go out there and call our new head coach a meathead, feel free, because all you're doing is underestimating the guy. And with that, you're just giving the Lions, you're giving that coaching staff, and even to a point, you're going to give the players a little bit more motivation. If they like the coach, if they're going to run through a wall for him, calling him a meathead, that's just going to want to make them play for him harder. And I realize they're professionals. They should be motivated to play already. It's not all rah-rah like it is in college and high school. I mean, this is their job. This is what they're paid to do. I mean, so with them having to get, a fiery speech or something like that from the coach, he's been there before. I think he knows what to say, what to do to get a team motivated to go play a big game and to go get motivated on maybe those dog games where if you're a good team and you think you can go into a stadium, put your helmet on and win, which we've heard in the past with other Lions teams do, like, oh, we thought we'd go in there and just win, and they end up losing, which has happened. Those quotes have come out before. Then I think he's almost the right coach to do that. And they're even putting the staff together to do that. All the former players, they know what it takes to win in this league. So go ahead, pundits, call the head coach, call all the coach, call the front office, call them all meatheads. That's fine. Just write them off. Because I'm going to tell you, maybe next year, this year coming up, with the devoid of talent that was on this team, it's going to take a little bit to get them back up and going. In a couple years, this team's going to be knocking teams out. And they're going to be a very dangerous team. So, and that's what I'm really looking forward to as a Lions fan. And I know that's what a lot of other Lions fans are looking forward to as well. For this team to turn it around and get going and be the scary team walking into stadiums. That's what they're looking for. And that's what I'm looking for too. So, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to trust the process, like you said. But, hey, you only got so much time to get this turned around before Lions fans are going to start calling for your head as well. So, next thing I wanted to mention was the wide receivers, and that's big. What we have coming in, or what the lack we have. I mean, there's once again the talk of putting Kenny, the franchise tag on Kenny Golladay, because obviously Jared Goff needs to throw the ball to somebody, and the only other real wide receiver on the team right now is Quintez Cephas. And I hope the recent filing against the University of Wisconsin, for feeling that he was a scapegoat in the situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to go look it up. But I do remember when that happened to him at the University of Wisconsin. I always thought he was a decent wide receiver there. Just obviously my lazy boy scouting, as Derek puts it, that I always thought he was a decent to good wide receiver for the University of Wisconsin, and I like the University of Wisconsin. I do. They're one of my favorite teams in the Big Ten. So, besides Michigan, obviously, is the number one. But I like the University of Wisconsin. I watch a lot of their football games as well. So, I hope this doesn't interfere. The Cephas court case doesn't interfere with him trying to improve as a player on the field. I don't know. I don't want to say it's going to motivate him. He's looking for something. I don't know all the details of it, and I don't know what's in his mind, and that's fine. I just hope it doesn't affect his progression of becoming a wide receiver in this league, because the Lions are going to need him. I mean, there's plenty of other guys out there, obviously cap casualties, people that, teams are going to get released, things like that. I believe Las Vegas just released Williams, a wide receiver. He was injured most of last year, so he's out there. So there's a lot of guys they can pick from. One guy that Derek brought up on a podcast recently on one of his own shows was Odell Beckham's out there. Come on, Odell Beckham's not coming here. Don't even pine for it. He's not coming here. Simply because he's not going to want to go to a team they're not going to admit, the Lions aren't going to admit they're in a full rebuild. They want to be competitive, but let's admit it as Lions fans here. Come on. They're going to rebuild. They got to. And Odell, or overrated Beckham as I like to call him, he ain't coming here. He's not. And I'm more than happy with that he's not coming here. I think he would just be a malcontent. I think he's your typical player wide receiver. He wants his, that he always does. Derek pokes at me because I always compare current players to like former Lions. I'm like, can this guy be this guy? Can this guy be this guy? Once again, I'm gonna take that one on the chin about calling Jelani Tavai a poor man's Chris Spielman. Sorry, Chris Spielman. I do apologize for that. I really do, but I often do that. But Derek tends to bring in guys where they're former players, former NBA players. I mean, I remember he's compared guys to like Rasheed Wallace, and I think he's compared guys to maybe once or twice, like maybe Chauncey Billups or something like that. I'm going to compare Odell Beckham to nobody ever on the Pistons, simply because, I mean, I don't even follow basketball. I do remember the Bad Boys, and I liked watching the Bad Boys then. I do remember when the Pistons won their NBA championship against the Lakers, where it just seemed the Lakers were supposed to come in here and, wrap them up because they had all those superstars. They had, Kobe and Shaq, Karl Malone, and I think the number 5 was like a lab or black lab or something, like Labrador Retriever. So it doesn't matter. Where the Pistons then were not star driven. So Odell Beckham compared to anybody in basketball, I'm going to compare him to Carmelo Anthony. These guys that they have to get theirs. Let's face it. What is Carmelo Anthony won in college at Syracuse? Odell Beckham, won at LSU. It was, on good teams down there. Got in the pros. They don't make anybody better. They're always looking to get the ball themselves. They're always looking to put their own stats up. I mean, they're going to say kind of like the right stuff in the media, how they're going to want to get, I'm here for the team, help the team, blah, blah, blah. But really, do they? Do they ever make them, do they? No. And Carmelo Anthony late is just like, well, yeah, I'd be happy to go play with this team now. I'd be happy to go back to Portland. Of course you would, because you're old and washed up and nobody really wants you and you still want to be sort of a ball hog. You still want to get the ball and still want to shoot because people think, oh, Carmelo Anthony's great. Look how many points he scores. Big deal. He doesn't make teams better. He actually kind of makes them a little worse. And that's what I think of Odell Beckham. He still has to get his. And I remember watching Colin Cowherd where he was talking about how Baker Mayfield, which, by the way, everybody knows how I feel about Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's that great either. How he would be better if Baker Mayfield would be better if Odell Beckham wasn't on the team. Well, what happened? Odell Beckham got hurt. He wasn't on the team. Baker Mayfield played better. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback that needs a lot of talent around him to be good, or at least somewhat good. Because we all remember the Jets game last year where, like, oh, they were missing all these wide receivers. He still threw for like 110 yards against the Jets. Okay, the Jets blew. And he couldn't, he didn't have any wide receivers. Who cares? If you're any good, you're going to make anybody good. And that's not Baker Mayfield, let's face it. But he didn't have Odell Beckham, and that's fine. Derek put some tweet out on Twitter about this. He tagged me and it like kind of busted my balls about it. About Odell Beckham's first 80 games, which he's what has like 6,800 yards and 50 touchdowns, and he was like, oh, don't forget about me. That was or something like that. Yeah, that is the typical "don't forget about me" tweet right there. It's like, hey, I'm still here. I'm good. Yeah, really. And so I kind of like looked it up. And I'm like, okay, let's compare, him to, let's say Calvin Johnson. Because, Derek always says he holds no ill will to Calvin Johnson, but he calls him a quitter. He left the team, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we've heard the story. So I kind of looked it up. Okay, first of all, Odell, your tweet is pretty much your career. That's what you've done. You've played like 81 games, 82 games. So that's your career, okay? So you've been around 7 seasons, and you've played 80 games. Yeah, how about you get on the field first before shooting your mouth off, okay? Yeah, let's break that down first, because I throw that at Derek, and Derek's like, he uses stats to back his points. I use stats to kind of manipulate stuff. And I say that before. It's like, yeah, that's all stats is. Take a stats class. You're just grabbing what you want to make your numbers look good. So I looked that up as well. So Odell, I always throw it at him that Odell Beckham, in 7 years, has played a full season of 16 games, like twice. So it's like, okay, you've been on the field for every game 16 times, twice. And I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. And people are like, okay, so you look into a little more. So he's been in 15 games once, 12 games twice, then 7 and 4. 7 games and 4 games. So that means, here I'm going to twist the number here a little bit, because once again, there's only 16 games. He's missed a quarter of the season out of his 7 years 4 times. So let's compare that to Calvin Johnson, because I use that all the time. So I can do the same thing here. Calvin Johnson played 9 years. He only played in all 16 games 4 times. So it's less than half his career. It's like, oh gosh, look at that. How can you're comparing Bustin' on Odell? You're right. The least amount of games he played in a season was 13, and he did that once. Every other year he played 14 or 15 games. So Calvin Johnson was at least on the field. So I didn't get the exact stats of 80 games. So I just pulled. I went up through his seasons. I went up to 82 games. Okay, that's what I did. So I'm fudging. I'm twisting the numbers a tiny bit here between Calvin Johnson and Odell. Once again, Derek's tweet to me on Odell Beckham was, in his first 80 games, he had 6,800 yards and 50 touchdowns. Who else has done that? Nobody. Mic drop. I'm the man. I'm Odell. Remember me. I'm great. No, you're not. You're Carmelo Anthony. Get out of here. So here's Calvin Johnson. I went 82 games. In 82 games, Calvin Johnson had 54 touchdowns and a little over 7,800 yards. Okay? So in 2 more games, he had 4 more touchdowns. In 2 more games, he had over 1,000 yards more. So Odell, Mr. Awesome, which Derek still thinks he can be a number 1, which I decree if it was any other wide receiver, because Derek likes him, if it was any other wide receiver, he would bag on the guy. But he likes Odell. He gives good sound bites. He likes his swag. Okay. He averaged 85 yards per game, is what Odell averaged. Where in those games, Calvin Johnson averaged 95 yards a game. So yeah, give me Calvin Johnson over Odell Beckham any day of the week. Give me the guy who doesn't talk. He lets his numbers walk for him, do the talking and walking for him, over a guy who's going to send out tweets shouting, hey, don't forget about me, I'm still great. So yeah. So if Lions fans want Odell as a wide receiver, first of all, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. He's not going to help the team at all. If he does end up coming here, it would be like 4 or 5 years from now, where he's still looking for a paycheck, and the Lions might want a name. But I wouldn't even want him at that point. That team's going to be way past that by now. They're getting this team turned around. They're going in the right direction. They're going to be sniffing Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls by that point. They're not going to want Odell Beckham. So Odell, go find another team. Go try to be a good teammate somewhere else and just get injured. Because that's all you are. You're overrated, injured all the time. The Lions don't need you. I would rather go draft young guys. I'd rather go draft Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, who Derek likes, Devontae Smith. I'd rather go get anybody than have Odell Beckham on that field. I mean, I'd rather go, like Derek put it, he'd rather have young, hungry guys with something to prove. I would take those guys over Odell Beckham Jr. any day of the week. Because those guys are at least going to freaking try. So that's what the Lions need for wide receivers for Jared Goff. They don't need Odell Beckham, who's going to be in the huddle saying, throw me the ball. I'm open all the time. I'm a 7-Eleven, open all the time. Sorry, Odell. I just ran some basic numbers. And like I said, it's just stats. I can manipulate numbers just like everybody else. It's fine. But the Lions don't need you. They really freaking don't. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a break here. You're going to hear a shout-out. I mentioned before, Benny Blades. Every Thursday morning, you get the Believe in Lions podcast with Derek and Benny Blades. It is a good show to listen to. Benny's got some good stories. They have the banter back and forth. Give it a listen, and I'll be right back after the break.
What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Derek Oakrey of the Detroit Koolaid Cast, and this is normally where I tell you about some of our great sponsors. But today, I want to tell you about my other Lions podcast. It's called Believe in Lions, and that's spelled BLEAV on the Believe Podcasting Network with both myself and Lions legendary safety Benny Blades. Yeah, you know who he is, the hard-hitting safety Benny Blades. Played for the Lions. He also played for the U. You know what it is, the University of Miami, those Miami Hurricanes. He mentions it multiple times on the show. Benny loves to talk about his Hurricanes, his Lions, and I love to play this soundbite on the show. We have a ton of fun on that show. We laugh, we joke, we talk Lions. Like I said, he brings up the Hurricanes. I talk about my Michigan Wolverines. It's a really fun show. Benny loves the Lions. He tells great stories from his playing days, as well as we're just rooting on this team. We BLEAV in the Lions. So please go ahead, find it on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that subscribe button and check it out. Share it with a friend. We really appreciate it. So check out Believe, BLEAV in Lions with myself and Benny Blades. Thank you guys so much.
Hi, this is Griff again coming at you here on a Friday. It's been kind of, sorry about the rant about Odell. Everybody knows how I feel about Odell. But I apologize for that. And it leads me to my next thing, I guess, is when I was talking about that, I used the word great. And it got me thinking really at one point when I was kind of pondering this before, what is greatness? Who deems greatness? You know, for the Lions, Derek kind of bust on me for that, saying, are they Lions good or are they NFL good? And he makes fun of me for that, which is fine. And I get it. Because I think there's times where you're a fan. You think guys are better than what they actually are. And I think it kind of goes the same line as greatness. Everybody agrees who's great. Tom Brady's great. Peyton Manning's great. You know, we all know that. You know, wide receivers, why? You know, Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Walter. We all know that. But I think there's some times it makes you kind of step back and wonder, what's great? How do you rate it? I mean, when I was a kid, Dan Marino's my favorite quarterback. And I think Dan Marino's great. But somebody will throw at me, well, he's never won a Super Bowl. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, But he did go to one. He lost it to Joe Montana, who, by the way, is great. But does that mean he's not great? I mean, if we were Lions fans, would we not take Dan Marino in the 80s? Are you kidding me? Compared to Eric Hipple and Rusty Hilger and Joe Ferguson? I mean, of course you're going to want to trot Dan Marino out there. He never won a Super Bowl, but you're going to take it. He was great. Now, it's another thing. Matt Stafford. I know it's like everybody's got the pad stats, and is he great? Is he a Hall of Famer? Do you consider it a Hall of Fame? Does that show your greatness? Because there's some people who say, oh, you made the Hall of Fame. Oh, it's a popularity. Sometimes it becomes a popularity contest if you were nice to the media. You know, if they like you that way, they're going to vote you in. So I guess ultimately, I mean, if you're in the Hall of Fame, you got to be deemed great, right? That's the creme de la creme, the best of the best. But I still hear people debate it. It's like, oh, they're not great. Matt Stafford never won, has a losing record against winning teams, never won a playoff game. But he's got a crap ton of stats. Is he great? That might be the point where it comes to he's Lions great. He's a great Lions player. And yes, he went to the Rams, and the Rams think they got a definite upgrade. And it's funny how after he got traded, all of a sudden ESPN just couldn't stop gushing about him. It's like when he was on Detroit, he was almost like missing. It's like, oh, Matt Stafford's here, okay, but he's in Detroit. We don't care about him. And then he gets traded, and like NFL Network, 4-letter network, all you hear is about how great Matt Stafford is. But us here as Lions, the fans, they were somewhat ready to run him out of town. But guys like me, I think he's great. I mean, is he Hall of Fame great? I guess you could debate that. But he's definitely Lions great. And people will yell at me for that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's funny. You're downplaying it. Well, it's because I'm a fan of the team. I mean, I'm not comparing him to like that. I'm going to compare him to like other guys that were on the Lions. Like I said, he was the last great quarterback since who? Greg Landry? I think that was the last good Lions quarterback. Greg Landry. And people say, well, Eric Kramer's good. Yeah, but Eric Kramer's like one or two, like a little splash. He was a decent quarterback. He wasn't great. I mean, it brings you to, there's so many guys that you could say. And I love Benny Blades. I think Benny Blades is great. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Benny Blades. So my eyes might be colored a little different. Might have that little bit of, Honolulu blue glasses on, where I think Benny Blades is great. Where other people are going to be like, are you crazy? He's not Ronnie Lott. Yeah, I know he's not Ronnie Lott. But he's still great. He's Lions great. That's to me, though. Chris Spielman, another one. Love Chris Spielman. Huge fan of Chris Spielman. Favorite middle linebacker when I was a kid. It's funny, like when me and Derek go back and forth, I always bring up guys like Mike Singletary or somebody like that. Dick Butkus. I never bring up Chris Spielman, but I love Chris Spielman. Do I think he's great? Yeah, I think Chris Spielman's great. I do. But that's just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, no matter how I came to it. Is he NFL great? Is he Hall of Fame worthy? I would probably say no. But in my eyes, he is great. So when other people come to me, if Derek thinks Odell Beckham's great, Hall of Famer, so be it. But I can throw you numbers back and say, no, we just differ in opinion. I say it all the time, reasonable minds can differ. And which is fine. If guys aren't that great, if they're not that great, I think they're not that. Kirk Cousins not that great. But Derek will tell you, well, look at the stats he threw up. Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford? Tell me which one you'd rather have. If you were not a Lions fan and you were on the outside looking in, who would you rather want? Do you think the Rams were like, hey, Matt Stafford's available, but I hear Kirk Cousins is available also? Who do you think they're going to try to get first? I heard Kirk Cousins has been on the table. San Francisco was interested. I mean, maybe other teams are calling. It's not getting nearly as much pub because people are going to take Matt Stafford over Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins got a winning record. He's got all these stats, though, and he's got all these touchdowns. Kirk Cousins, I'm sure he's a nice guy. From Holland, Michigan. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Really. But he ain't that great at quarterback. He's not that great. See, I think greatness is just a very trite word. And it's thrown out a lot. Where it's like, oh, he's great. Really? But what's your measure of great? Like I said, is it a Hall of Fame? Or do you look at it with a certain level of, you're a fan of a certain team. So, you think he's great or not? There's plenty of people. Joe Namath's in the Hall of Fame. I love Joe Namath. I've never seen the guy take it down on live ever. All I've ever seen is film of this guy. seen film of him in the Jets uniform. I've seen film of him, in an Alabama uniform. I think he's great. Talk about a guy with swagger. Talk about a guy with style, panache. That was Joe Namath. Guy guarantees a Super Bowl victory and backs it up. That's swagger. That's greatness. Yeah, at first his team didn't like him. Go watch some stuff, read some stuff. His teammates didn't like him. They said, give him the captaincy, and maybe he'll take it a little more seriously. So they did, and Joe Namath did. Yeah, that guy's great. But I know plenty of people, I've been in plenty of arguments with people that say, he's not even a Hall of Famer. Look at his stats. Look at his stats. More interceptions than touchdowns. And it's just one of those things where, but that's it. I'm looking at it with glasses because I have a fan's eye. And that's just, you want the Lions to get great players. And Derek pokes at me and says, you know what? Just because they're not Hall of Famers, all pros, you think they're not that great and they stink. No. I'm just wise to realize that, we need better players on this team than just Detroit great. We need better players than that. We can have guys that are nice in the community, and I'm fine with that. We can have guys that are, good to fans, and I'm fine with that. But the Detroit Lions, to go to the playoffs, make deep runs, and win Super Bowls, they need better players than Detroit great players. And it happens in all sports. It happens with all teams, all fans. I mean, some teams, they're just racked with great players. Tom Brady's a great player. Obviously, he went to the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay and went and won it. People can debate, hey, maybe Tampa Bay got some calls and helped him out. But still, he took Tampa Bay to this. Was Tampa Bay going anywhere with Jameis Winston? Was Jameis Winston even Tampa Bay great? Derek still thinks he's going to be a decent quarterback. I think he sucks. Okay? Talk about an overrated quarterback. But he likes him. He likes style, and maybe he gives good, quotes or whatever. He wasn't even Tampa Bay great. Tom Brady goes down there and wins Super Bowl. The Lions need better players than just Detroit great players. And if everybody's like, no, they just need dogs. They just need hard-working players. They need this. I hate to break it to you. The NFL is an entertainment business. They want teams out there on Monday night, on Sunday night, teams with named players. They want, if you're a crap, how do the Giants get a Monday night, 2 Monday night games every year? How do the Dallas Cowboys? Why? Because they are big market teams. Teams love to watch those guys, and they got big fan bases. So for Detroit to do that, they need great players. If you want to see them on those games, I know I checked the schedule for their primetime games, and every Lions fan out there is just as disappointed as I am when they only get their Thanksgiving Day game. Every other game Sunday at 1 o'clock. Unless they're on the West Coast one time, then they play at 4 o'clock, which sucks. Those 4 o'clock starts, I hate them. So they need great players. They need better players than Detroit great. Like I said, Matt Stafford threw up a bunch of stats, but he was Detroit great. Half the fans were ready to run that guy out on a rail. Other ones, me and Derek backed him. So they need great players, either doing it through the draft. They're not getting. And Chris Spielman kind of hinted they weren't going out looking this year to make big free agent spending, big splashes. Year or two, they're going to start building this team through the draft. They got to get rid of some of the dead weight that the old regime, Matt Pat and Bob Quinn left here. But they know talent. They're going to start bringing in some great players. And they're going to bring in guys that are better than Detroit great. Why? Because those guys on that team have been in the league in a while, and they know greatness. I'm going to say that right now, they know greatness. And sometimes greatness is just a matter of being able to go out on top. When you know you're there, you're able to walk off into the sunset after a win. It's like you realize I had a great career. I know who I am. I'm set. I'm okay. I want to be able to get up on Monday and walk around. Not need 5 knee replacements. Stuff like that. Sometimes greatness is just knowing that, and that's what it is. And that's why it's just great to be a fan, because we're not the ones out there putting our lives on the line. And we can rip guys like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson for quitting on their teams. They quit. But you've left jobs. And I'm guaranteeing people have me and you have left jobs. And nobody's ever called us quitters. They just got tired of doing it because the money wasn't worth it to them anymore. But we have fans' eyes. So that's what the difference is. So, as always, kind of going out on top is the big thing. So, that's what everybody wants. And when people go out on top, people say, oh, they're great. Look how great he is. So, well, that's all I got for today. And speaking of going out on top, I just want to say to everybody that this is going to be my last regular show. I appreciate you guys all listening and letting me come into your minds and listen, giving you my opinion. Because that's all it is. It's my opinion. You have your opinion. I've debated with some people on Twitter. But, I've I think it's just the end of my run. So, I'm sure Derek's still going to bring you the Detroit Kool-Aid, bring you the content that you're looking for. He's still going to be doing his all of his scouting, bringing you guys, all the information. That's fine. I'm sure, he'll have it all broken down, and he'll know everything about every guy out there, ready for the draft, him being the GM and all. So, once again, I do appreciate your time. And as always, drink it in, man.
Pack the bags, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.